friends. How are you? My name is James Robalata. I am super excited to be kicking it with you today and potentially 2 more days if you like this one enough. But I'm super excited that you are here. I know right now I am just a random man to many of you, and that's fine. That's totally fine. The fact that you took a shot on me means a lot. And so thank you so much for coming through. And I am excited to connect with you. Let's talk about it, friends. And by it, I mean me. So here is who I am. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a proud New Yorker, born and raised in New York. I don't know if we got any other New Yorkers out here. If you're a New Yorker, let me know in the chat, my friends. I always like to meet my fellow New Yorkers. But I'm a proud New Yorker who now lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota, technically. But I moved here just about a year and a half ago, and surprisingly love it. It's going quite well. There we go. Oneonta. Look at this. Westchester. Jersey doesn't count. Nicole, Jersey never counts. I'm just kidding. Love you, Jersey. So I'm a proud New Yorker, y'all. I'm also a professional speaker, as you can tell. But this is what I get to do for my job. I get to travel around the country when people are allowed to breathe on each other again and talk about the role that authenticity and vulnerability play in love and leadership. And so I love doing this, and now I get to do it virtually, which is really exciting because I've actually been able to reach more individuals, and it's been a lot of fun. But this is what I get to do. I get to travel around to a lot of companies and do some university work as well, and get to do this. It's really special. So I'm also a life leadership and speaker coach. I hold people accountable to the lives that they say they want to live. And I do that by helping them get out of their own way. So it's a big thing that I love to do. It's a little bit of a side hustle for me, but a fun passion project. I also wrote a book. It's called Leading Imperfectly. Here's what it looks like. Hey, great. Do you see it? Do you see it? Okay, branding. So I enjoy the book a lot, though I'm self-conscious about it. So let's keep moving. I'm also an improv comedian. I've been doing improv since around 2004, and I just love comedy. I think if we're not laughing, then we're crying in this world. And especially this week, especially this year, we've been either laughing or crying. And so I try to choose laughter when I can. I started an improv team called North Coast in New York City. We incorporate freestyle rapping into long form improv. That's a random fun fact. Another random fun fact, at my senior prom, I dislocated my right knee dancing to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Great. So I offer this up to you, my friends, so you can get to know me just a little bit more, but also as a disclaimer, I believe it is possible to laugh and learn at the same time. I believe it is possible to crack jokes and call ourselves professional at the same time. As a matter of fact, I think it's a really great way to build teams, to lower walls, and to connect a little bit more. And I hope you agree with me. Let's find out. Today, we are here talking about committing to your teams. Talking about committing to your teams, and commitment is a big word, a word that many people are scared of. I don't know if we got any committophobes out there, but no shame to you, my friends. But commitment is a powerful word. Oftentimes when we think about commitment, we often think about marriage. We often think about marriage because marriage is a pretty intense commitment. And so here's a random fact about me also. I have officiated a number of weddings. I've officiated a number of weddings, and I love getting the opportunity to do it. It's a ton of fun. It's really special. And for me, whenever I get to work with some of those couples that I get a chance to work with, I always do that in a number of different ways by offering specific things that I need them to do. For example, if someone asks me to officiate their wedding, what I ask them is that, great, that sounds good. Here's the first thing. I am not a man of the cloth, so I will not be including any religion in your talk. And that's just not something that I'm going to do. But if you'd like to have somebody else do that or hire someone else, that's totally fine. But since I am not of that, since I'm not a trained, practiced, ordained minister, I mean, the internet says I am, but other than that, I'm not going to incorporate that stuff in. Also, I also let them know that there's going to be some moments where I want to have conversations with them. I want to have at least 3 to 5 conversations with them on the front end to talk about their love, to talk about the way that they handle conflict, to talk about the way that they communicate. And I also tell them that I want them to write their own vows. If you're bringing a friend in to officiate a wedding, that probably means you want a really personalized wedding. So let's make it even more personal and write your own vows. So I mention all that because a lot of this comes back to this word of commitment. And when we think about marriage, it's not just committing to the person. I mean, that'd be great if you could do that. Please do that. But in relationships, it's committing to the work. And the commitment to work is powerful. The commitment to work is necessary in order to actually get through the rough spots, to get through the high times, and to be able to enjoy it and appreciate everything. If you're not committing to the work, then you're not committing to the lifetime of connection. And so that's why I want to talk to you about today, is we're going to dive into this idea of commitment, because commitment isn't just in personal relationships. Commitment also plays a huge role in professional relationships as well. And so in order to talk about commitment, I want to share with you a little bit of a model that I came up with. And the model is, I'll share my screen again. The model is very simply named, because of alliteration, my supervision spectrum. And now, I don't know if you call yourself a supervisor wherever you work. I love it because on this call right now, we have individuals that work in HR. We have individuals that work in management at various companies. We have people who work for nonprofits. We have individuals that work at colleges and universities, people across the board at all different types of companies. And so I'm super excited for you all to connect in a minute. But I love this moment because supervision is something that we all have to, at some point, be a part of, whether we are being supervised or we are supervising someone else. And so I want to talk about this spectrum. We'll talk about the spectrum that I came up with. There's going to be 3 different points on it. Let's talk about this first one first. That makes sense. Let's talk about being a boss. Being a boss is on one side of the spectrum. When we say that we are a boss, bosses and boss archetype folks often have loose connections with individuals. They aren't very close with the individuals that they manage. Instead, they kind of keep everybody at quite a distance, and they often have just very loose connections, right? A lot of small talk, not much else than that. Bosses also care more about team performance than team dynamics. They focus more energy on team performance than team dynamics. They care about results. It's about the results, and however they need to get the results is what they need to do to get the work done. They also care only about credibility. A lot of times, bosses are individuals that care about the results because it makes them look better, right? We got to get these results done because if I can show that I moved the numbers from Q3 to Q4 or from the fall to the spring or something like that, then I can show that I am a worthy individual in this role. Credibility is interesting because credibility is often very detailed oriented. It's a lot of numbers and things like that. And so when we think about that credibility piece, that's where they focus more of their energy on, is making themselves more credible, also occasionally making their teams more credible as well, but for the sake of them often to be able to shine. So we know these individuals. Also, they tend to err on the side of micromanaging. Since they're so focused on results, they want the results to get done in the best way that they believe it has to get done. And so they often micromanage to get those results done the exact way. And they don't let individuals really kind of fly and explore, dream, create, innovate. Instead, it's like, no, get it done this way and whatnot. A lot of times these individuals are confused with leaders when they're actually just people with control issues, okay? Leadership and control are a fascinating relationship. Last but not least, these individuals who identify as bosses are often seen as unapproachable, and they are feared. They're feared because if I were to go up to them and have a conversation of like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I don't really know what's going on here, or hey, I got a couple of questions, they walk into the office like they're walking into the principal's office like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Right? They're walking in and they're seen as someone who is feared. A lot of eggshells around these individuals typically because you don't want to rock the boat. I'll tell you a quick story about it, an experience that I have with someone like this. I'll tell you their exact name and where to find them on LinkedIn as well. No, just kidding. But so I once worked at my first job out of graduate school after I got my master's degree was at a university. And I was excited to work at the university and I was pumped to try to climb the ladder there. I eventually wanted to be the vice president of a small school. That's what I was really trying to gun. That was what I was gunning for when I initially set out on that career path. And so as an entry-level professional, I reached out to the vice president of the university who had the job that I would love to have one day and said, hey, I'd love to meet up with you for coffee to learn a little bit about how you got to where you got to. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what roadblocks you came across, what are some things that you did that helped you kind of propel your career a little bit faster, yada, 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 trying to set up a little bit of a mentoring moment. A few weeks went by and I never got a response. I then got a response from somebody who reported to him 3 weeks later. And that response simply said, did you reach out to the vice president? And I emailed back, I said, yes. And then I got a phone call, and the phone call said, you're not allowed to call the vice president. You're not allowed to reach out to them. You're not allowed to email them. If you have any questions, you can filter them through me. And that's how this works. I then got an email from the vice president a week later that said, James, thank you so much for your email. I've hired individuals underneath me to answer those questions. You've hired people to talk about your personal story and your journey and your work. That's what you've hired. It's so interesting because in that exact moment, I realized that this was a know your place type of environment. This was a know where you're at, know that there's a hierarchy, know that and this particular place was run by an old boys club, and know that there is an old boys club and you're not in it, young boy. You're not in it at all. And so it was a fascinating moment where this individual didn't care about me. Didn't care about making a connection with me. They were very clearly unapproachable, and they also led with fear. Interesting. Let's move to the other side of the spectrum. On the other side of the spectrum, we have friends. The other side of the spectrum, we have friends. Let's talk about friends real quick. Friends have a lot of personal relationships. Friends as supervisors have a lot of personal relationships. And when a supervisor errs on the side of the friends, they are individuals that care more about team dynamics than team performance. They are more about like, is everybody getting along? Are we doing okay? Does everybody feel believed in? How are we doing over here? Is everybody okay? Yeah, no, we'll get the work done. Are you okay? Let's talk about that, right? And there's those individuals that stay on that side of things. These are individuals that care only about relatability and likability. They want to be seen as super approachable. They want you to know that you can come and talk to them about anything. Tell me what's going on with your pets. Tell me what happened with your grandparents. Tell me about that date you went on last night. Tell me about literally anything you want to tell me about. And let's have a conversation with it because they're trying to find that relatability piece. They're also sharing a lot of stories about themselves, whereas bosses share no stories about themselves, right? Friends share all of the stories. You learn a lot about them as well. And so they only care about that side of it. Therefore, they often err on the side of leniency. They often err on the side of, everything's gray. Everything is gray. And so just tell me what happened and, it'll be fine. We'll get through it. It'll be, what is a deadline? Deadline-ish. Okay. Right. These kinds of individuals. And oftentimes, when supervisors are striving to be more like friends than anything else, they sometimes get walked on and they're often not as respected. They're individuals that get walked on a little bit more and they're not as respected. And we know these individuals. You've been with these type of individuals as well. I know that I have been that kind of person as well. When I first had an opportunity to supervise, I had a staff of 12, and there were some individuals that I absolutely loved working with, and they were incredible. And I could tell that they got it. They got my vision. And that's where I spent a lot of my time, to the point where I would say I practiced favoritism, even though I wasn't like, I will practice favoritism. It's just what I did because we naturally lean towards individuals that we are more comfortable around and who believe in us, who see us. And so therefore, there was these other individuals that I didn't get along with, different personality types. And I let them get away with a lot more than I let the individuals who were close to me get away with, just because I didn't want to ruffle the feathers and I was trying to get them to like me. So that's a little bit about the friend side of the supervision spectrum. So we got our bosses and we got our friends. So then who's in the middle? Well, in the middle are great leaders. In the middle are great leaders. And let's talk about great leaders real quick. Great leaders have professional relationships. And by that, I mean, they know a little bit about what's going on with individuals. They know a little bit about their story, their care. They recognize that people have lives outside of the office, that people have lives off of the campus. They recognize that, let's learn about that. Those things are influential factors in how you show up to do the work that we are supposed to do. And so, yes, I'm going to care about your family. Yes, I'm going to care about your life outside of work, but I'm also going to make sure that we nail this and actually get some of this work done and recognize that, there's got to be a little bit of a balance here. There's got to be a little bit of a balance here. So they share some stories about themselves. Maybe they don't share all of them, right? They don't walk into a meeting and be like, I got something to say, right? They're finding the appropriate middle ground. Great leaders see that team performance equals team dynamics. Team performance equals team dynamics. So you need to still focus on team dynamics. You cannot not care about that and think that you are going to perform the best, and especially perform the best and retain the people that work around you, right? Because you can hit the gas and get to the finish line, but then everybody's wiped out and they're out of here. What would be better is if we all cross the line together. And so they recognize that they have an integral balance between team performance and team dynamics, and that they equal each other. They are necessary. They also practice relatability backed by credibility. So in other words, they are individuals that care about the relatability. They recognize that when you see yourselves in someone else, you believe that you can. And so sharing little stories about ourselves is important. Sharing times where we slipped, where we struggled, where we messed up, where maybe we held something back, or whatever it is. Those stories are important, but those stories are backed up with, and here is what I've learned from it. And here is where I now am because of that. Here is how I changed my approach. It's a really important thing that we're going to talk about a little bit actually next week, when we start to talk a little bit about the way that we give feedback to each other. So they also set vision that they set a vision that gives courageous feedback and praise. Again, like I said, we're going to talk about that a lot next week, so I'm not going to touch on it too much right now. But setting that vision is incredible, and letting individuals know this is where we are going. This is why we are going there, right? They're not just parents. A lot of cliche parents are like, because I'm the parent. That's why, right? Because I said so, because I'm the boss. I'm just the boss, and this is what I said, and then what I say goes, right? But they're also not on the friend side, where the friends are like, well, what does everybody else want to do? No, everybody, let's sit in a circle and let's have a sharing moment. No, I'll bring the cookies, right? Like there's a middle line where the leader takes responsibility for setting the vision after hearing the ideas of others. Next, and last, they are respected as both a leader and an advocate. So they are seen as someone who gets things done, that is able to move a team. It's powerful. It's beautiful. It's great to watch the forward momentum happen. But while they're doing that, they are also advocating for the folks around them. They're advocating for the folks around them and letting them know that, like, hey, your personal and professional development matters as well. They're also standing up for them. They're not taking all the praise. Those kinds of things are what we're talking about here. So this is the little supervision spectrum that I came up with. And here's what I want to do, my friends. I believe the best conversations that we have during these educational training moments, they can't just be someone talking at you. I believe that at some point in time, we need to have conversations with each other, because when we say things out loud, it helps us process things. It helps us really believe something, right? If I say it out loud, if I write something down, that's a lot more effort than just me absorbing something and then being like, oh, that was nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. What do I want from Chipotle today? Right? Those moments are important. And so that's why whenever I do presentations, I strive to use the breakout room function on Zoom. Now, some of you are like, hold up, I don't want to meet anybody. I got a tuna fish sandwich hanging out of my face right now. It is okay if you cannot turn your cameras on during this breakout. But if you could, that would be incredible. because the connection is going to be a little bit better. It's going to be a little bit better. You're actually going to hear the message a little bit stronger. And also you're going to meet somebody pretty awesome. So what we're going to do is we are going to put you into some breakout rooms here in just a minute. And those breakout rooms, what I want you to talk about, I'm just putting here in the chat for you to start thinking about. But I want you to think about that supervision spectrum from boss to great leader to friend, and think about where do you fall on that? And also think about where would you say other people say that you fall on that list? Would they say that you're more on one side or another? Let's say bosses are a 0 and friends all the way on the other end of the spectrum is a 10. What kind of a grade would you give yourself, and what grade do you think other people would give to you? All right, we're going to create these breakout rooms. You're going to have about 4 to 5 people in them, just so you know. I would love for you to introduce yourselves. Just talk about what you do really quick. And then let's jump into these 3 questions that I put into the chat. If you met somebody cool in your breakout room, do me a favor. Give me a thumbs up or smash one of these reaction buttons or something like that. Did you meet someone that you never met before? Amazing. I love it. I love it. Here's what I would also love for you to do in the chat. Can you let me know where you fall on the supervision spectrum? 0 is you are a boss to 1 degree, and a 10 is you are a friend all the way over here. Where do you think you more often fall than not? Where would you say you put yourself on that spectrum? Got some 6, 7, solid 7, Beth. I like it. Okay, we got some 3, 4s. 11, a boss. That's great, Dan Fail. We'll talk later. Literally, we have a call scheduled. 8, 7s, 5s, 3s. Okay, some 4s. Yep. Okay, great. This is also weird because most people are like, I want to be a 10, like on all Likert scales, 10 is great. And now I'm making you choose the middle. It's weird. I love it. What's up, Andrea? Good to see you, friend. Okay, you fluctuate depending on who you're around. I think that's a really cool observation. Yeah, for sure. Situational, definitely. Yeah, I love this. As I mentioned, for me, where I fell, like I would say in the very beginning, I was like a 9, right? I used to tell myself, the best supervisors walk the line between friend and manager, and that line is very fine. And it took me a long time to realize that I can hold people accountable and they will still respect me. Also, turns out you can hold some accountable and they will still like you also. Right? It's a pretty incredible dynamic that took me a long time to learn because I was so afraid, especially, I mean, you err as a new leader, you err on the side of caution. And some people's idea of caution is I'm going to be all the way over here and I'm going to put my walls really high. I'm not letting anybody in. I'm going to be the definition of professionalism, right? And then there's other individuals that are all the way over here and they're like, I think if I'm going to err on the side of caution, I want everybody to be my friend so that we can all hang out. At least we'll laugh, right? And so it's interesting to see where we also error, what side we often err on, given how new we are to a position or to leadership or to an organization or whatnot, or to a team, right? It's funny the way some of those things still creep back into our world. You just don't jump in because there's got to be some rapport building in the middle of it. And we all believe that rapport is defined differently. Some people believe that rapport is defined through relatability. Other people believe rapport is defined through you gonna respect me, right? And so it's very interesting to notice where you fall, and as you transition into new opportunities, what comes back in? What are those things that are innately ingrained in you? So I want to take it a layer deeper, my friends. Here's a fun fact about this program. This program, when it was originally created, was called Love and Leadership. But everybody told me, nobody from corporate's coming to a program called Love and Leadership, okay? We're not talking about love. We're not doing it. It's not happening. No one wants to sign up for it. It's too mushy-gushy. And you know what? I agree. Marketing is everything. So we changed the commitment. And so the thing is, my friends, is that I want to talk to you a little bit about love right now. It's going to get a little cheesy, but stick with me. There's always a point. Well, there's frequently a point. I'm an extrovert after all. Sometimes I just keep talking for fun. But so let's talk about this really quick. Let me go ahead and share this screen. I want to tell you all about my definition of love. I want to tell you all about my definition of love. Now, you see the pill capsule on the screen. Can you do me a favor? Give me a thumbs up or smash one of those reactions if you've ever seen a pill like this before. You ever seen one of these? Like I think Tylenol was one of these ones, right? They used to make a capsule like this. There's a whole bunch of ones. And so here is my definition of love. Here's my definition of love. I believe love is that capsule. All right. I think love is that capsule. And so when we say, I love someone, when we say, hey, I love you, it kind of has all of these other little balls inside of it, but it's an easy way to be like, here you go. But it's all those little balls are the reason why we love somebody, right? Oh, you believe in me. You laugh at my jokes. You think I'm attractive. I like your family, the way that you were raised. I respect your faith. I respect your views. I like your morals. I like the way that you make me feel. Those kinds of things are all the little balls that when we say, hey, I love you, it's just a more efficient way than saying like, oh my God, I love the way you make me feel. I like the way you feel, right? Like, you just can't say all those things as you're running out the door. So it's like, I love you, bye, right? And so when I have the opportunity to officiate weddings, I tell people that their vows is not the time to say the word love. Their vows is the time to actually talk about all of those little balls, all of those little things inside of it, because this is the moment that we are talking about and celebrating this emotion. And so when we work with individuals, I believe we also need to love them. And now, don't make it weird, y'all, okay? But I'm saying that we need to love these individuals because love and commitment are best friends. Right? Love and commitment are best friends. And so we can call it commitment if commitment feels a little bit better for you. That's totally fine. But I think it is critical that we think about it in this way because there are aspects of everybody that you work with that you do indeed greatly like, dare I say, love, right? We love the way people's brains work. We love when people are innovative. We love when people hold us, the way that some people hold us accountable, the way people get us out of tough moments, the fact that someone knows how to crack the right joke at the right moment. We love those individuals that include everybody. There's different moments and different things, aspects of the individuals that we manage that we love and that we can celebrate. Now, it's very important that you hear me say, I do not believe it is your job to now go back to your people and be like, I love you. Oh my God, I love you. No, I love you. No, don't make it awkward. But I do believe that there are ways that we can show love and ways that we need to focus on how we can love our people, i.e., how we can commit to these individuals. So here's my idea. I believe that investment plus commitment equals love and leadership, right? So if we're going to love as leaders, if we are going to be a leader that tries to lead with love and not fear, that takes investment and commitment. Let's talk about investment first. These two are very similar, but there's some differences between them, in my opinion. Let's talk about investment first. First off, I need you to listen to this individual. And a lot of us know active listening. You can all tell me right now the steps of active listening. Well, it's good eye contact. You're squared your shoulders to somebody. You're nodding your head with them. You're asking good follow-up questions. You're paraphrasing. We all know the steps to actively listen. But let's have a moment of honesty. You can fake it. Trust me, I do it, okay? You can fake active listen, but you cannot fake care. Now, don't get me wrong, you can fake care, but what I'm saying is if you tell yourself, I am going to make the decision to care, then you naturally do all the steps to actively listening. You naturally lean in. You naturally are more authentically curious. You naturally let somebody finish talking. You naturally ask better follow-up questions. You're not just interested in what you want to say. Caring is investment. How are you showing individuals that you care about them? I think that's a critical thing that we need to focus on. Also, courageous personalized feedback. As I mentioned, next week we're talking all about feedback, so I'm not going to go too deep into this right now. But courageous personalized feedback is critical because a lot of us hate growth conversations because they're super awkward. Right? They're just a weird moment and they're hard and it's like, I don't know how to do it. But we also know that they are critical in order to keep forward momentum happening. We cannot develop and not talk about the bad and the good. And so having courageous personalized feedback moments, what that looks like is having conversations with individuals where you are sharing a little bit about yourself as well. Where you're telling them, like I mentioned earlier, under the great leader category, you're sharing a little bit of that, like, hey, here's a time where I slipped, or, it's funny, I've been in your shoes before. Here's the story that happened to me. The story is critical. But a lot of times, leaders often just say the phrase, well, yeah, I mess up all the time, right? And that's how they think they're relating to individuals. But that's not enough. I want the story. And I don't need the whole story. I don't need a long story longer. But what I'm saying is giving me a piece of the story matters because I love it. I love it when, especially on social media, you hear about the entrepreneur's journey, right? And someone's like, I had an idea and I sold it for millions of dollars. Huzzah. It's like, what the hell happened in the middle? It looked like heartbreak. It looked like failure. It looked like trying. It looked like finding small wins. It looked like a lot of those other things. We have to share the story in between the idea and the final result. It's critical. Also, we also have to practice thoughtful appreciation. I'm not sure how many of you all know your love language, but shout out to Gary Chapman for making that a free resource. So if you've ever heard of Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, it's a free thing online, and I recommend you can take a really quick assessment. I think it's a really cool thing to do as partners as well. But there's a way that we can also apply it to the workplace as well. And Gary Chapman talks about how there are 5 love languages. We show through physical touch, we show things through words of affirmation, acts of service, time, and the other one that I can't remember that someone will put in the chat in a minute. But it's those 5 things. Who's got my back in here? Someone will have it. Gifts, thank you. I knew somebody knew it. And gifts is the other thing. And so thoughtful appreciation means thinking about how does this person want to be appreciated? Not I will appreciate this individual the way I like to be appreciated. Because if you give someone, if you tell someone you're doing a great job, you're amazing, you're wonderful, but they actually don't see that as their love language, then they're going to be like, okay, that's fine. But like, are you going to give me an extra day off? Are you going to buy me a new watch? Are you going to, take me out for lunch and kind of spend some time with me, right? Like those kind of moments, learning how people like to be appreciated is critical. That's how we can do it more thoughtfully. Last in the investment category, I think investment looks like being authentically curious and supportive about what they do outside of work. What a gift it is to give to someone who you manage, to let them know that, hey, you're a whole human being. And I know that this work is a piece of your life, but it's not all of your life. And I want you to know that I want you to do things that bring you joy outside of work, because when you do things that bring you joy outside of work, you bring that positive energy into work as well. We know that it is a cyclical thing. And so being authentically curious about what people do outside of work, whether it's their families, whether it's their hobbies, whether it's their rec sports, no matter what, I think that's a way that we can start to be invested individuals as the whole human. That's the investment side. The other side is commitment. And commitment looks like this. Commitment looks like patience, because growth is a process. Commitment looks like persistence, because growth is a process. Commitment also looks like advocacy and showing up. But let's talk about these first 2 first. Being patient is a gift, and it is hard because you have deadlines. You have things that you want to do. You have a manager or a supervisor who is telling you what they need by a certain date, and you're trying to also advocate for the people below you, but at the same time, you're trying to cover your ass. And so it's this weird mix. But being patient with these individuals in their process of growth is critical. There are no careers that demand perfection, with the exception of maybe one that I can think of, right? Like I never want to hear my neurosurgeon be like, oops, right? Like that would be bad, okay? But still, there are no careers that demand absolute perfection. The issue is though, is that when the people who we manage aren't perfect, it creates more work for us. And that's frustrating. When the people that we supervise don't do everything exactly right, it creates more work for us, and that is frustrating. But the patience is key there. Giving someone patience, giving someone grace creates more efficiency on the back end. We just need to make sure that we talk about them, and that's why persistence is in there. Persistence doesn't look like one annual review meeting a year. That's not persistence, right? That's an occasional spike of like, you should do this. And that's not going to work. So how are you being persistently committed to your folks? How are you showing up for them and taking some moments to have some conversations? Grab a quick walk, grab a quick, let's set up a little one-on-one Zoom meeting really quick in the virtual world, whatever it looks like for you in your current work life. Being persistent and showing up for somebody, asking them questions. Hey, you said you wanted to do X. How's X going? Hey, you mentioned this. How's that going? Those kind of things. Being persistent in their growth is important. But that's hard because a lot of times we just tell people to go and do something and then we don't follow up with them. We don't check in. How are you feeling about the project? What's going on? And then they drop the ball and then we get really frustrated with them. And so how can we be more persistent with the individuals and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in a way that they are excited about doing it? Next, advocacy. How do you advocate for the people around you? If you notice that you have one coworker that's consistently getting cut off in meetings, how are you advocating for that individual to the other individuals in the meeting, not just that person being like, hey, it sucks to see you get cut off a lot. It's got to be frustrating. Don't get me wrong, talk to that one individual, but how are you also advocating for them to the larger group of like, hey, hang on a second, everybody. She wasn't done yet. Let's not cut her off, right? How can you advocate for some individuals if you notice that some of the policies in your companies don't necessarily care about individuals who are different than what the rest of the company kind of looks like, right? They come from a different part. They talk a little bit differently. They have an accent. They practice a different faith. They love a little bit differently. They look a little, whatever it is. How are we advocating for those individuals to know that they feel heard and not just they are great check boxes for our companies and our campuses? How are we advocating for each other? How are we stepping up and having some of those difficult conversations to be like, hey, I think this is something we need to pay more attention to. So, and also obviously commitment looks like showing up. You got to show up. And showing up looks like all of these things above it. But just being there, being present, caring about them. Investment plus commitment equals love and leadership. And when we lead with love and not fear, we build better teams. When we lead with love and not fear, we make people more excited to try, to innovate, to put themselves out there, to speak up. And isn't that what we want most of our teams to do? Don't we want teams to have the courage to try? That's a really powerful thing that we need to be doing. And so here's what I want you all to do right now. What I want you all to do right now, this is actually it's a personal activity. I would love for you to do it. If you are on your phone right now, you can take some notes really quick. If you are at a desk and you have a piece of paper around you, that's great too. Whatever it is that you have, here is what I would love for you to do. I'm going to give you about 4 minutes. I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to do this activity just for you to kind of get it started. I think it's one that you can easily come back to. So here we go. As I mentioned, with all the weddings that I officiate, I ask couples to write their vows. I want you to think about what vows are you going to give, sorry about that. I want you to write 5 to 10 vows to those that you have the opportunity to lead. Think about what should you be promising the people around you? So I want you to just take a minute and write some of these vows down, and let's go ahead. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the chat. Give y'all just one more minute. Okay, let's bring it back. Y'all want to be respectful of your time. So this is an activity that you can very easily do with those that you work with as well. And it could be an interesting thing to do on your teams, or if you have a level of managers that get together, or a level of supervisors that get together or whatnot. This could be an interesting activity to do. It's a very simple one. And I think it's something that you can do annually for sure. A couple of quick questions that I would suggest that you do. We could have done these in breakouts today, but again, I want to be respectful of people's time and whatnot. But just there some simple questions that you can use when you do these in your teams later. Is just these kind of things as well. And feel free, like I mentioned, you'll be able to get all of the you'll have the video of this as well, and so you can get more of the supervision spectrum as well when you get that video, and you can talk through that with your teams as well. Or you can have me come in and do it. That would be wonderful. But still, that's what we're talking about here, my friends. Let's end in this idea. Let's end in this idea. Again, today we're talking about committing to your teams. And it's such a powerful word of commitment. And you are committing to the work. You are committing to the leadership. You're not just committing to getting a task done. And so you're committing to these individuals. And the role that that has in the way that you develop your teams is immense. So trying to fall somewhere in the middle of that supervision spectrum, from being a boss to a friend, trying to be that great leader that recognizes that team dynamics equals team performance. That relatability still leads to credibility, those kind of things. Having those powerful conversations and recognizing that investment plus commitment equals love and leadership. And in our teams, it is so much more powerful to lead with love and not fear. And I know that love is cheesy, and so you don't have to use the word love. You can use commitment. That's totally fine. No shame, no shame. But let me end on a quote, because that's what professional speakers are carefully trained to do. And before I do that, my friends, I want to put here in the chat, a lot of you hopefully will be back next week. We'll be back next week, and or you'll get the recordings of next week. But here in the chat are just some ways to stay in touch with me, just in case we are not already connected in some of those places. Well, feel free, Instagram, LinkedIn, let's connect there. And also, I just dropped a podcast. It's called Diner Talks with James. It's about the fun late night conversations you have with friends that you never want to leave over food that you probably shouldn't be eating. And I try to recreate some really cool conversations there. And you can also get 3 free chapters of my book, Leading Imperfectly, as well. But I welcome the opportunity to stay in touch with you and talk about, after this, I'm going to hang out for some Q&A. If people have questions, I welcome you to hang out and we can talk for a little bit. If you got to go, that's totally fine. Let me end on this quote. One of my favorite rappers, I'm a big hip hop guy, is this guy named Shad. He's a Canadian rapper. Believe it or not, Drake is not the only Canadian who knows how to rap. And so Shad simply says this on one of his tracks. He says, well, I can't be everything to everyone, so let me be anything to anyone. He said, well, I can't be everything to everyone, so let me be anything to anyone. My friends, when you lead with love, when you make the choice to invest, when you make the choice to commit, you will be something to someone. And that is critical in the way that we build the health and the strength and the resilience of our teams. Friends, so fun hanging out with you. Have an amazing day.